Welcome to Cat Has Questions, curiosity, stories, and the strange corners of everyday life. Hello, I'm Kat, and welcome to Cat Has Questions. There's this idea that if you just work hard, follow the rules, and do everything right, your life will stay on track. And I think most of us at some point have felt what it's like to fall short of that, to not meet expectations, to feel like you've messed something up in a way you can't undo. But this case isn't about someone trying to fix a mistake. It's about what happens when someone decides to build an entirely different version of their life instead, and what it takes to keep that version from falling apart. Jennifer Pan survived the night her parents were attacked inside their home. She was tied up. She heard everything. She watched it happen, and she lived. And for a while, she was the only one who could explain what happened. Here's what we know. Jennifer Pan was raised in a household defined by structure, discipline, and expectation. She was raised by her mother, Bic Pan, and her father, Huey Han Pan, who were both Chinese refugees from Vietnam to Canada. Han, Jennifer's father, was born and educated in Vietnam and moved to Canada in 1979 as a refugee. Bic also came to Canada as a refugee. The couple were married in Toronto and lived in Scarborough. Jennifer was born in 1986, and her brother Felix followed shortly and was born in 1989. The Pans found work at an auto parts manufacturer in Aurora, Ontario. Han worked as a tool and die maker, while Bic made car parts. By 2004, Han and Bic purchased a house with a 2-car garage on a residential street in Markham, a city in the Greater Toronto area. So Jennifer's parents built this life in Canada through consistency and hard work. Education wasn't just important to them, it was the path forward, the plan. Jennifer's parents set many goals for their children and were said to have had extremely high expectations of them. Jennifer was made to take music theory and harmony lessons at the age of 12, as well as figure skating classes where she trained most days of the week. Her aspirations to become an Olympic figure skating champion ended when she tore a knee ligament, sadly. At Mary Ward Catholic Secondary School, Jennifer played the flute in the school band. According to her high school friend, Karen Ho, Han was seen as the, quote, classic tiger dad, and Bic was his reluctant accomplice. The Pans picked Jennifer up at the end of the school day each day and closely monitored her extracurricular activities. They never permitted her to date while attending high school or attend dances out of fear that these activities would distract her from her academic commitments. Jennifer was also not permitted to attend any parties during the time her parents believed she was at university. By 22, she had never gone to a club, been drunk, or gone on vacation or a trip without her family. Jennifer and her friends reportedly regarded this upbringing as restrictive and greatly oppressive. On the surface, Jennifer fit this plan. She was known as a high-achieving student, quiet, responsible, focused. The kind of daughter who didn't cause problems. But underneath that image, there were things that didn't quite line up. At the time, though, no one was questioning it, because from the outside, everything looked exactly the way it was supposed to. The perfect family, high-achieving kids, really just the dream for refugees coming to a new country. Despite her parents' expectations that Jennifer receive good grades, in high school they were really somewhat average in the 70% range, except for in music. It was later learned that Jennifer had begun forging report cards. And Jennifer would deceive her parents into thinking she earned straight A's. She was just straight up making pretend report cards. And that's what she would give to her parents. A real turning point was when Jennifer failed calculus in grade 12. She had an early admission to Ryerson University, which is now called Toronto Metropolitan University. And they rescinded her early admission because of this failed class. She could not bear to be perceived as a failure. So Jennifer began to lie to those she knew, including her parents, and pretended she was accepted into university, and was even pretending to attend there. She sat in cafes, taught piano, and worked in a restaurant to earn money. In order to maintain the facade, Jennifer told her parents she had won scholarships. So they wouldn't be paying for tuition. So they didn't have to worry about that because she got scholarships. But really, they didn't need to pay tuition because she wasn't in college. Later, she falsely claimed that she had accepted an offer into the pharmacology program at the University of Toronto. She went to the extent of purchasing secondhand textbooks and watching videos related to pharmacology in order to create notebooks full of class notes that she could show her parents. She was really leaning into the lies hard. Feels like maybe it would have been less work to just apply to a different college in hindsight, but what do I know? So at this point, Jennifer was still living at home, but Jennifer then requested permission from her parents to stay near campus with a friend, which had actually turned out to be her high school boyfriend that she was secretly dating named Daniel Wong, who later transferred to Cardinal Carter Academy in North York due to low grades. So she was staying with him during the week. He lived in Ajax. He was an active marijuana dealer and managed a Boston Pizza. While pretending to study at Ryerson, Jennifer told her parents that she had started working as a volunteer at the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto. Han and Bick soon became suspicious when they realized Jennifer did not have a hospital ID badge or uniform. Bick then followed her daughter to work one day and quickly discovered the deception. Greatly angered, Han wanted to throw Jennifer out of the house, but Bick persuaded him to allow her to stay. As she had not completed high school, Jennifer eventually began working to finish high school and then was later encouraged by her parents to apply to university. Which is also wild that she faked graduating high school and attending college. That's so much work. She was forbidden to contact Wong anymore due to his parents being from different ethnic backgrounds, according to Jennifer, or to go anywhere except for her piano teaching job. So basically they kind of cracked down. They realized okay, you've been lying about all this stuff. Let's get your life back on track. Let's just do this the right way. Daniel and Jennifer remained in discreet contact, even though her parents forbade her from seeing him. I'm sure her parents also, I know it mentioned about different ethnic backgrounds. I'm sure her parents also didn't approve of him if he was an active drug dealer, more importantly, but by 2009, Wong had grown weary of trying to pursue a relationship with Jennifer because of the restrictions imposed by her parents. Wong broke off the relationship and began to date another woman. After learning of this new relationship, Jennifer falsely informed Wong that a man had entered her house, showing what appeared to be a police badge, after which several men rushed in and gang raped her. She claimed that after this, a bullet was mailed to her, and that both of these events were arranged by Wong's new girlfriend. So that's obviously really extreme. I feel seeing all this in hindsight, there were obviously for sure red flags about her compulsive lying and just trying to manipulate people to get what she wants. I'm not saying it would be super easy to grow up in a very strict household, so I can see why a teenager might think it's the end of the world, failing a class, not graduating, etc., especially knowing the weight of the disappointment she may feel from her parents. But this is extreme lying to manipulate people, which is obviously very, very wrong. On November 8th, 2010, everything shifts. Late that night, inside the Pan family home in Markham, Ontario, the three Pans living there, at the time, Jennifer, Bick, and Han, are having a normal night. Nothing seems out of the ordinary. Then, multiple armed gunmen broke into their home. It's not random, they move with purpose. Jennifer is confronted, restrained, and tied to a banister. Her parents were taken to a different area in the house, where they were both shot. Jennifer was able to loosen her arms that were tied together and called 911. Pan told dispatchers that intruders had shot her parents, Bick and Han, and that her mother had died instantly while her father was gravely injured. She was very much presented as a terrified, innocent victim who had witnessed a horrendous attack. In the immediate aftermath, the story is clear. This was a home invasion, a targeted attack. Jennifer was the only witness since her father was in a coma, after being critically injured and in the hospital. At first, the narrative holds. There's no reason not to believe her. She was there. She was restrained and she called for help. Everything about the scene supports what she's saying. But as investigators begin to piece together the timeline, small things start to feel off. Not enough to change the story, just enough to pause. It starts with details. Jennifer's account of what happened inside the house, how the intruders moved, what they said, how the events unfolded. It doesn't stay consistent. There are subtle shifts, timelines that don't quite match, descriptions that change. And then there's the question of targeting. If this was a home invasion, why was Jennifer left alive? Not shot at all. Why was she restrained in a way that allowed her to eventually call for help? Why did the scene feel controlled? It wasn't chaotic, it wasn't rushed, but deliberate. And the more investigators listen, the more they start to focus not just on what Jennifer is saying, but how she is saying it. Investigators began looking into Jennifer's life. Not just the night of the crime, but everything leading up to it. And what they find doesn't match the version of the life that had been presented. Because Jennifer Pan wasn't a high-achieving student. She hadn't been accepted into the programs she had said. She wasn't attending the classes she claimed. The life she had been describing to her parents, to others, wasn't real. It had been constructed for years. And suddenly the case shifts. Once the foundation cracks, everything else begins to follow. Communication records, phone activity, connections that hadn't been obvious before. And the investigation moves from what happened in the house to who had reason to make it happen. Jennifer's role in the story becomes harder to separate from the crime itself. Not as a witness, but as someone connected to the planning, to the people involved, to the events that led up to that night. And piece by piece, the version of events she had given begins to fall apart. So police initially believed the family's wealth lured the perpetrators into the house, but they grew skeptical as numerous valuables had not been stolen. It also seemed unusual that Pan was left unharmed and had dialed 911 with her hands bound. The evening after the murder, police interviewed her. Han also later woke up from a coma and recalled to police that he saw Jennifer whispering to one of the hitmen in a friendly and soft manner, which is terrifying if you're him. She was arrested on November 22nd, 2010, during her third interview. Jennifer admitted that she had hired the killers, but she claimed the plan was to kill her, not her parents. The interrogating officer, William Bill Goetz, used the Reed technique to obtain Pan's confession. He falsely told Pan that he had computer software that could analyze untruths in statements and that there were satellites with infrared technology to analyze movements in buildings. Just as a note, in Canada, police are legally allowed to lie to those that are being interrogated regarding evidence that they have allegedly collected. This just also kind of shows you, though, how young and naive Jennifer was to perpetrate such a heinous crime against her parents. The co-conspirators were all slowly caught and arrested months after the murder. So, I gave you the timeline of what Jennifer had said happened that night. But now I'm going to walk through what is believed to have actually happened after she started confessing and kind of when they went through beat by beat of evidence. So, in the spring of 2010, so a few months prior to the home invasion, Jennifer was in contact with Andrew Montemayor, a high school friend who she claims had boasted of robbing people at knife point, which he now denies. He introduced her to Ricardo Duncan, a quote-unquote goth kid, to whom Jennifer claimed she paid $1,500 to kill her father in the parking lot at his workplace. Duncan said that she had once gave him $200 for a night out, but he returned it and said he was not able to kill her parents. So Jennifer and Daniel Wong were back in contact at this time, and I believe this would have been like after he broke up with his new girlfriend, so after Jennifer fabricated the story about the new girlfriend hiring men to abuse her. According to police, Jennifer and Wong came up with a plan to hire a professional hitman for $10,000, calculating that she would inherit $500,000 after killing her parents. They planned to move in together. Wong connected Pan with Lenford Roy Crawford and gave her a SIM card and iPhone so that she could contact Crawford without using her usual cell phone. Crawford, in turn, contacted another man, Eric Sean Sniper Carty, who in turn contacted David Milavaganam. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. At trial, the Crown, or the prosecution, argued that Milavaganam was one of the hitmen. Carty was later convicted of an unrelated 2009 murder. So to keep it straight, we have Jennifer, her boyfriend Daniel Wong, and then these three other men, Crawford, Carty, and Milavaganam. The murder took place at the Pan House in Markham's Unionville neighborhood on November 8th, 2010. Jennifer had unlocked the front door of the family home, then she went to bed, and she spoke to Milavaganam on the phone before going to bed. Shortly after, he and two other people entered the home through the front door, all armed. In the court testimony, the Crown did not establish the identity of the other two hitmen. Supposedly, Wong and Crawford were at work. Carty stated that he was the driver for those who broke into the house. He also selected them and was involved in plotting the attack. The identity of the triggerman remains unknown. After demanding all the money in the house and ransacking the main bedroom, the three men took Bick and Han to the basement and shot them several times. Bick died and Han survived. The three men then took $2,000 from Jennifer and left. Jennifer claimed that they tied her up, but she managed to call 911. What emerges isn't impulsive. It was structured, a plan designed to solve a problem, to remove pressure, to eliminate expectations, to stop the version of her life that was collapsing from being exposed. And in doing so, it created something far more irreversible. The trial of Pan and her accomplices began in March of 2014, and it lasted 10 months. All defendants pleaded not guilty to the charges of first-degree murder, attempted murder, and conspiracy to commit murder. At the trial, evidence included exhaustive tracking of mobile device movements and text message traffic, including over 100 messages between Pan and Wong in the 6 hours prior to the killing. Further evidence focused on the atypical nature of the break-in, the robbery, shootings, and irregularities in Jennifer's testimony. Her obsession with Wong, emotionless confession regarding the attack, and recognition of the trauma she underwent was also detailed. A major irregularity was that Jennifer was not assaulted, blindfolded, taken to the basement, nor shot, leaving behind an eyewitness to the attack. Han's very different account also undermined her credibility. Jennifer, Wong, Milavaganam, and Crawford were all convicted and sentenced to 25 years to life. Originally, Carty was tried with the other perpetrators. However, his lawyer fell ill and his case was declared a mistrial. In December 2015, Carty received an 18-year sentence after pleading guilty to conspiring to commit murder, with eligibility for parole after 9 years. But he died in prison in 2018. According to Carty, he did not wish to subject Han Pan to another criminal trial. So as I mentioned, Jennifer and her co-conspirators' trial took 10 months, with the jury sequestered for the 4 days it took to reach its verdict. The foreman, Patrick Fleming, said, "I lived with daily thoughts of this crime. Graphic coroner photos of bullet holes through flesh, the bloody crime scenes, and the chilling testimonies." He also recalled regularly reliving the moment he read the verdict and the screams from the defendants and their families. So some lasting trauma for these jurors, too. Han and his son, so Jennifer's brother Felix, requested a restraining order to ban her from any further contact. It was granted over Jennifer's lawyer's objections. She is also banned from ever contacting Wong. As of 2016, Pan was incarcerated at the Grand Valley Institution for Women in Kitchener. Wong, Mivalganam, and Crawford are all still in prison as well. Carty, who I'd mentioned died in prison in 2018, was actually stabbed to death in prison. In May 2023, so more recent, the Court of Appeal for Ontario overturned the first-degree murder convictions of Jennifer Pan and her co-conspirators, ordering a new trial after finding the jury had been improperly limited to scenarios that only supported first-degree murder, rather than being allowed to consider lesser charges like second-degree murder or manslaughter, while still upholding the attempted murder convictions of her father. In April of 2025, so just last year, the Supreme Court of Canada upheld the decision in a 7-2 ruling, noting that a jury could reasonably find the original plan may have only targeted her father, not her mother. Following this, rather than retry the case, the Crown allowed plea deals. In early 2026, multiple co-conspirators pled guilty to reduced charges. Jennifer Pan herself also pleaded guilty to manslaughter in her mother's death, maintaining a life sentence, but with the possibility of earlier parole than her original first-degree murder conviction, while her convictions related to the shooting of her father remain in place. Pan's funeral was held in November of 2010 in Scarborough. Jennifer had been asked to organize the funeral. I believe at this point it would have been unknown that she was a suspect at all, but that's just horrifying if she did help plan and went to the funeral. Bick was buried on November 19th. Tragically, Han, her husband, could not attend due to his injuries. He would have still been in the hospital. Jennifer Pan does not talk to her father or brother, as I mentioned. since they had a court-issued non-communication order prohibiting her from contacting them. Her father said in a victim impact statement, he felt he, quote, lost his daughter at the same time he lost his wife and hoped she would become a good, honest person someday. Life after the attack for Han Pan is that he survived gunshot wounds to the face and shoulder, but also suffered from severe emotional and physical trauma, including anxiety and chronic pain, and has since stopped working due to these injuries. At the beginning of this case, Jennifer Pan was the only one who could explain what happened inside that house, and for a while, that was enough. But the most unsettling part of this case isn't just what happened that night. It's how long a different version of the story was able to exist alongside the truth. Because sometimes, it's not the absence of answers that makes a case difficult. It's realizing that the answer was there, just hidden inside a story that was never meant to be questioned. If you guys want a little bit more, I've got a couple bonus episodes and some extra case content over on my Patreon. Actually, one of the short bonuses on there is specifically related to this week's case. I will link my Patreon in the show notes if you're interested. Stay curious. Thanks for listening to Kat Has Questions. If you liked this episode, follow the show and share it with someone who loves a good spiral. See you next week.